G'day guys, well I guess it's my turn for some Jersey tales. My story a wee bit different, but follow me anyway. Alright, well I've got plenty of accreditation, so we'll just have a look and be hidden away here in the cupboard. Oh, here we go, there we go. And there's plenty of them, I can tell you, dating back, some of them back 45 years or so. 1976 Olympics, pretty embarrassing shot that one. 78 Commonwealth Games. Actually, I've improved a bit in 2 years, haven't I? I really want to talk about it. I couldn't find the accreditation for 1996 in South Africa, but that really is the standout test match for me. The one in Pretoria, where the All Blacks became the first All Black team to win a series in South Africa. And we won the first test in Durban, okay, and then we came to Pretoria, and I think the feeling amongst the All Blacks and amongst the media and everybody who was there was that we had to win in Pretoria, because if we'd left it to Johannesburg, it was just going to be too hard. And we all know how that test match unfolded. It was just incredible. We all remember the nuns who were in the crowd as part of the All Black supporters group, and it was just a fantastic atmosphere. It was just a phenomenal game, and it was such a privilege to be there when history was finally created. Well, I actually learned a very valuable lesson that day, because I thought if history is going to be created here, I'm going to write it down, and so that I can just read this thing when the final whistle blows. And I did. I read it out.
The first All Black team toured here in 1928, and since then 4 other sides have tried to break the hoodoo and failed, but today, Sean Fitzpatrick, John Hart and the All Black team have created rugby history. New Zealand has at last won a test series in South Africa.
And when I look back on it, it just sounds so contrived. So I've never done it since, never done it since. I've always just relied on the moment to carry it. After all, we're talking television here. I could have shouted out the word history and then just left it. But I had this contrived thing which I read out, and it sounded awful. I think it sounded awful anyway. So I learned a very valuable lesson that day, actually.
Handed away by Umaga, they're shifting it smartly. Now Lomu's in the clear. 1-on-1. Regan comes across, he's got support. Alatini, fantastic.
What a game, what a game. They still talk about it, I'm sure. It was a huge crowd out at the Olympic Stadium. We scored 3 tries, I think, in the first 7 or 8 minutes. I think Tana got one, Peter Alatini got one, and I think Christian Cullen might have got one. And we shot out to 24-0. And you look at the clock and it's only about 10 minutes gone. You're thinking, where will this end? But it was a pretty good Australian team, let's be honest. You know, they got it back to 24-all by half-time. And we finally got home with that overhead pass by Tane Randall. The moment it went to Jonah, I thought, this is a dead set try. It can't be anything else.
Can he make it? You betcha! You betcha! Jonah's in!
And it was just a great occasion. Well, I've been involved in a lot of World Cups, starting in 1987, obviously, the inaugural one in New Zealand, 91 in the UK, 95 in South Africa. And then there was a bit of a gap because we didn't have the rights for it. So then we picked it up in 2011. That's me in 2011, blimey. And of course, that was a memorable tournament because it was here. It was the first time in 24 years. And we hadn't won the damn thing since '87. And I think when I reflect now on what it was like to call the final and when the final whistle blew, it was just relief. And I think you talk to any All Blacks from that team, they'll tell you exactly the same thing. It was just purely relief. I didn't find it emotional. I don't get terribly emotional about a lot of things when it comes to rugby, because it's a game that's won or lost on the day. Probably more emotional was 95 in South Africa when we had the best team, but South Africa played better on the day. And I think the emotion of being in South Africa and seeing the Springboks win, that actually made me feel a bit more emotional because they were such great winners. Now, there are great winners and there are bad winners, but the South Africans were great winners. You know, they didn't gloat and all the rest of it. I thought they were fantastic, actually. So 2015 was a different kettle of fish altogether. We had an outstanding All Black team, there's no doubt about that. But the biggest highlight, I think, of course, was the winning try. And Justin Marshall spotted it probably slightly before I did.
Beauden Barrett's got a heap of pace. Go Beauden! That's on, do it! That's the World Cup!
I thought he was going to push me out of the commentary box. He got so excited about it all. But, you know, look, he's a former All Black. He's played in World Cups, and it means a lot to those guys. I was chuffed that in 2015 we were able to win, beat Australia, and do it at Twickenham. All those things were just fantastic. I remember in Dublin when Ryan Crotty scored that try and Aaron Cruden converted it, and at that point Ireland hadn't beaten us, and we thought it was going to happen that day. It should have happened that day if Johnny Sexton had kicked the penalty.
Aaron Smith scoops it away to Cruden. Here's Coles.
What a pass! What a pass!
Ryan Crotty scores!
Oh my goodness!
When Crotty scored, honestly, Justin shoved me so hard, I was lucky I stayed in the commentary booth. You know, he was that excited about it. But that's good. That's what we want, a bit of passion. So there we are, guys. There are my jersey tales. I guess they're not really jersey tales, are they? They're accreditation tales. And it's been real fun.